Hey everyone, thank you for joining the class. So we're gonna get started in just a couple of minutes, but I really want to hear from you. So I have this poll right up here. You should be seeing this on your end. I would love to know what your fundraising plan looks like currently, whether you have an existing one that you're working off of, or if you're just kind of going, along the way and figuring it out. Yeah, so I'm seeing those responses come in. Looks like we have some across the board. I'll wait till I get everyone's responses and then we'll dive right in. Cool. So yeah, it seems like we have some of you that have a fundraising plan in place. A lot of you don't actually have a fundraising plan at the moment. So we'll totally walk through how you can do that. Some of you have do everything sort of the same things every year. Some of you kind of think through it along the way, and then other. So yeah, thank you everyone for your responses. This is really insightful, so I can kind of tailor our content towards you throughout the process, especially speaking to the 42% of you that don't have a fundraising plan already. So I'm going to close out this poll and I'm going to get us started. I'll share it just so everyone can also see this for you. And here we go. So perfect. So thank you everyone for joining so far. Welcome to our class today on reworking your 2020 fundraising plan. Today's class is going to be all about reassessing your fundraising plans, your existing plans, and then really exploring the digital fundraising opportunities that you have to predictably grow your fundraising through the rest of this year and beyond. So there's a small group of us today. I'm really excited to have a little bit of personalized time with you guys. So any questions that come up throughout the process, please feel free to chat those in. There's a questions pane. I'll get to those at the end. And I'll keep in mind, I'll keep an eye on the chat for if I say anything confusing, let me know and I can kind of backtrack and answer all your questions. Everything is being recorded currently, so you're going to get the recordings to today's class. You can rewatch it later, share it with your team, so that will be there as a resource for you. And let's dive right in. We have a ton of content to get to today. I hope it's like 120 slides, so we're going to just get going. So my name is Candace. I am the manager of customer success and education here at CauseVox, and I will be your teacher for today. If for those of you that aren't familiar, CauseVox is a digital fundraising platform that can help you raise more with less effort, and I'll go over more about us later. But let's dive right into our class schedule for reworking your fundraising plans. So today's class, again, all about reassessing your fundraising plan and exploring digital fundraising opportunities. And then our next class is going to be on Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern, and that's going to be more about plugging in all of the insights that we learned today into an actual formatted fundraising plan, and I'll go over that template in just a moment. And then class number 3 is actually individually scheduled, so you and I get some one-on-one time to go over your fundraising plan, and I can help you spot some fundraising opportunities and help you optimize your plans in that session. So as far as the course goes, you are going to get access to all of these slides and then the recordings of class 1 and 2. You're going to have that one-on-one consultation with me. And we are going to give you a template and resource guide that you can use. So all the templates that we reference, I'll actually chat those in and email those out in the summary of our class today. And then, yeah, so I'll go into more of that template as we get into it. So let's dive into our class today. So we're going to be taking a look at 4 things. So the first is just a basic intro to fundraising planning and what that actually looks like. Number 2, we're going to talk about our digital fundraising methodology that we've seen work really well here at CauseVox, just to give you like a little bit of background into digital fundraising. Then we're going to go about assessing your fundraising needs and how you can determine where the gaps are in your budget and what you need to fill for this year and beyond. And then we're also going to really dive into strategies on how you can predictably grow your fundraising. Sorry for the typo there, but we'll be diving into that in just a moment. So let's go over just a bit about fundraising planning and what that looks like. So a fundraising plan is a document that organizes all of your fundraising activities over a certain period of time. It's usually about a year. So those of you with existing fundraising plans, you probably already are 6-7 months into that. And you're going to be looking at redoing that for the rest of the year. For those of you that don't have an existing fundraising plan, we're going to start today and start crafting that fundraising plan for the rest of this year and throughout early 2021 as well. These strategic plans generally include campaign dates and strategies, donor tracking plans, special event details, and a targeted communication schedule. And a fundraising plan is designed to keep you focused and on track to meet your goals throughout the year. So with a fundraising plan, it actually solves a number of problems. So for those of you that don't have one in place, you're probably always kind of thinking of whatever is most urgent at the moment and fundraising towards that. And so what this does is that when you're focusing on only what's urgent, it makes long-term strategy very difficult, and that can sort of impact the predictable fundraising revenue that you have coming in. So you're always sort of in a state of, oh no, we have to fundraise, and then that kind of stifles you from really having some plans in place to help you grow fundraising for the long term. It also causes a lot of stress and confusion around what fundraising strategies are most effective at your organization. So once you have your whole plan in place, you can actually assess the data and really see which fundraising strategies are working best for your organization and which ones you should basically lean further into and incorporate further into your ongoing fundraising initiatives. So basically, a fundraising plan helps you really drive long-term fundraising growth instead of just short-term revenue. So, few advantages of having a fundraising plan. You'll have a strategic plan in place that helps you optimize your fundraising for the rest of the year. So it's really all about looking at the big picture fundraising strategies to help you consistently grow fundraising. You'll also be able to identify and expand on fundraising initiatives that help you drive the most revenue. And as a result, you'll have predictable and measurable outcomes so that you can best track and grow your fundraising over the course of the year. So you're going to get a few deliverables from this course. One of them is a fundraising planning calendar. Another is a goal worksheet, which is a lot of what we'll be looking at today. And then that one-on-one session to really review those two items and make sure that you are really primed to succeed with your digital fundraising plans, especially in today's context. So here are your templates. So this is the fundraising plan template. You'll be filling this out with all of your fundraising activities, your projected revenue, as well as calculating those costs throughout the year so that you can have everything organized in one place that really helps keep you on track when it comes to your fundraising initiatives. And then today we're going to be focusing most of our time on the fundraising goals worksheet. So focusing on how exactly you plan on growing your fundraising throughout the year, what your main focus areas and next steps really look like, as well as listing out any obstacles in the way that can keep you from reaching those goals. So we're going to be diving into some specifics of that. As a next step, you are going to want to download that fundraising planning calendar and SMART goal template. I will be pasting that in the chat in just a little bit. So before going any further, I do want to acknowledge today's context and what that actually looks like for fundraising. So here at CauseVox, I chat with nonprofits all day. And a lot of nonprofits are unfortunately struggling at the moment. They've had the economic contraction that's happening has really caused tighter budgets. And I'm sure all of you are already working on tight budgets, and then you had your budget even shrink further. So we definitely see that and understand that, and we'll be addressing some ways to work with a tighter budget. And then you've also had to reimagine your programs and just ways of working in general. So I'm sure a lot of you, like myself, are working at home now. And you've probably had to restructure your programs to really still keep going amidst the coronavirus, or, you know, maybe unfortunately you've had to cut down on a few programs. Unfortunately, fundraising events for the foreseeable future are canceled, and there's this rapid transition to virtual fundraisers, which you're having to navigate. So we're going to speak to this as well, and really how you can pull off that transition quite nicely and what some of the advantages are. And then unfortunately, the reality is that we don't actually know how long this is going to go on. So this really speaks to when you're constructing this fundraising plan, there could be things that change along the way. Right now, it looks like through the end of the year, at least, we're probably not going to have in-person fundraising events. So that's probably what we should plan for. But this could also extend into, you know, early 2021, and we don't really know where it goes from there. So I think that's a big thing to keep in mind when you are constructing these goals and you are constructing this fundraising plan, is that, you know, all of these external factors may change, and you may be able to, let's say, host that event that you thought was going to be virtual in person. So just kind of keeping that in mind, that things are kind of changing all the time, but I would plan for digital and virtual first, and then use in person as kind of a backup and a nice surprise if that gets to happen. There's also been this really, really quick shift from, you know, marketing and fundraising at a nonprofit. Mostly, you know, these two things have been kind of separate. They've always kind of overlapped a bit, but now there's this huge shift to digital and marketing and digital fundraising quickly becoming all in one. And so some of you probably already wear many hats and you're kind of used to this, but some of you are also probably trying to navigate this shift. And we'll talk about some of the ways that you can do that as far as, you know, digital fundraising to build up your audience. Okay, so then really the nonprofits that will withstand the pandemic are the best, are the ones that are the quickest to adopt a comprehensive digital fundraising strategy. So that's really what we're going to be diving into today, is talking about digital fundraising and the basic functions of that. So within the last 2 years, there's been a 24% growth in online donations, and in 2018, mobile giving increased by 205%. So this is only increasing more at the moment. The data is still coming out, but of course, with lots of in-person fundraising options canceled, there's this rapid shift to all things digital first. So digital fundraising isn't just the future of fundraising, it's now. It's happening right now, and we have to really quickly adapt our plans to it. So a lot of fundraising today has typically been structured in almost project style fundraising, where you maybe think of, you know, doing fundraising twice a year. You have your big year-end ask, and then maybe do a spring campaign. This kind of cycle of fundraising kind of keeps you stuck a bit, because you're only considering, you know, there's these long cycle times where your fundraisers or donors, if you're doing peer-to-peer fundraising, your fundraisers, they don't hear from you for a while, and then you come in with the big ass. And then there's not a real great repeatable process when you only do fundraising twice a year to really adapt and grow your fundraising for the long term. So what we've seen work really well here at CauseVox is more of a repeatable, constant sort of process when it comes to digital fundraising to help you sustainably grow fundraising over time. So this looks a lot like continually trying to build your audience, whether it's driving more web traffic, so maybe doing some search engine optimization, having more content and blog posts come out that help you come up in search. Social media, so whether that's organic or you're doing maybe some digital ads to drive traffic to your social media sites, really just trying to get it all out there so that you're bringing more people to your website, more people through social media to build up your audience. And so then once you have that audience built, you want to really continue to nurture and engage them. So having welcome email series that go out to let your audience know who your organization is, what you stand for, helping them to just get to know and inform them about what it is that your organization really does and how they can get involved. And then from that nurturing, you want to convert your donors, so driving them to make a donation, or for any existing people in your networks, maybe convert them into peer-to-peer fundraisers. And what's great about that is when you have people that are fundraising for you, they're actually attracting more people to your cause, helping you build your audience further, and then helping you bring more people in to nurture and convert. So that sort of fundraising cycle builds on top of itself to help you continually drive fundraising growth. So all of this is designed to be measurable and designed to be repeatable so that you have a real predictable fundraising model. And so with each new donor that you get, your donors are going on a journey with you, and you always want to continue to nurture them and take them to the next step to make an even bigger commitment with you. You know, make a higher gift or become a peer-to-peer fundraiser. So all of these sort of basics are what found our principles when it comes to digital fundraising. So an action item for you is to really think through what you're currently doing to attract, nurture, and convert your donors. So how do you build your audience right now? What are you currently doing to nurture those who are either just in your audience or current donors? Do you have email series going out? Do you do phone calls to connect with donors? And then also converting donors. So how are you doing that at this moment, whether it's just driving people through your website or you know, what kind of strategies that you currently have in place. And then this can help you basically spot opportunities for you to grow your digital fundraising approach and put that into your fundraising plan. So that's just kind of the basics. So really, when we're talking about digital fundraising for this year, we're gonna do a lot of assessment of your current digital fundraising needs. So there's basically 3 ways to assess gaps in your fundraising plan. So the first is existing fundraising plans. So when coronavirus hit, I'm sure that a lot of your fundraising plans got disrupted, whether it was a canceled event or two, maybe some sunk costs from something that you couldn't get back when, you know, a deposit basically from an event that you put down or something along those lines. So when you're thinking about your fundraising plans, the first step I want you to think about is all of the things that got disrupted when all of this happened. So you'll want to make a list of each event, each plan that you had in place that didn't happen, because all of these are actually opportunities for you to fundraise to cover those funds lost basically from each of those events. And then you do want to consider what can be moved virtually. So even if it's a little bit later this year, like let's say your spring gala got canceled, even if it's a little later this year, how can you still incorporate that into your fundraising plan for the year and be moved virtually? So an example of this is that N10, they do an amazing conference for nonprofits every year. Unfortunately, last minute got canceled. It was taking place in April, I think, this year. So they had a lot of sunk costs from their canceled event. They used this as an opportunity to actually put this out there in a crowdfunding campaign to their typical attendees to help cover the costs that they had already, the sunk costs for their event. So one idea for how you can really simply sort of fill any gaps in that budget. Number 2, you can take a look at your programmatic fundraising needs. So I'm sure when all of this happened, a lot of your programs needed to be switched around. So what costs were involved in that? and what new programs were needed or needed to be expanded. So kind of consider all of the costs in changing your programs around, and that can help you really expose gaps in your fundraising plan and what you really need to continue to stay on track budget-wise for the rest of the year. So that is one way to really assess an opportunity for fundraising. So one example of this is the Homeless Children's Playtime Project. They typically did in-person programs with kids in homeless shelters, and they have a whole program. They come in, they do a lot of fun activities, but unfortunately they couldn't do that this year. So they had to switch around how they approach their programs, and they ended up launching this peer-to-peer campaign to cover those costs and switching the program to actually instead send play kits so that they're not exposing children unnecessarily. And yeah, it worked out really well to help them cover those costs. Another example is the Hebrew Free Loan Society. They had to rapidly expand their programs because they typically do a lot of funds to small businesses in New York. So they quickly spun up this crowdfunding campaign to help them cover the cost of increased loans that were needed during this time. So you can kind of see how they spelled it out. They went over exactly what they were doing to really increase their programs and what it was going to be covered, what was going to be covered with each gift. And then thirdly, operational fundraising needs. So it's likely that, you know, some operational expenses maybe didn't get covered when all of this happened. So you're going to want to think through, you know, staff that maybe had to go part-time, maybe rent that is kind of a little shaky at the moment, or any unforeseen purchases. So if your organization needed to suddenly fund everyone's laptops so that they can work from home, these are all expenses that you're going to want to take into account when you do restructure your fundraising plan and include that in your budget. So that's really exposing the 3 different ways that you can assess what immediate fundraising needs that you need to cover when it comes to really exploring your budget. Here is one example of an organization that's using CauseVox to cover their operational expenses. They basically had to cancel everything for the year, but they still were hoping to basically exist when all of this was over. So yeah, so they really spun up this campaign, and those who have been dedicated to their organization over the years really have come through so far and raised over $180,000 for the organization to basically help keep their operations running. All right, so when you are thinking through both the existing fundraising plans that have been disrupted, programs that have been changed, and operational expenses, definitely you're going to want to recalculate your budget for the year. That's the first step into really figuring out what you actually need. So think through all of your main expenses so far, things that didn't get funds that didn't get raised, and really see what else is currently needed so that you can have an idea of just what you actually need to raise for the rest of the year. So pretty simple outline here, and that's really the first step. So just action item for you is determine how much you need to raise for the rest of the year to cover your budget. And all of this is going to be broken down into smaller fundraising goals. So once you have that big fundraising goal, so whether that's in our example here, it's like $155,000 that isn't covered. Once you have that goal, you want to think about the ways in which you're going to meet that goal. So it doesn't have to be one big campaign to raise $155,000. It's probably going to look like a few different things that you're going to do, and maybe 1 or 2 big fundraising events or pushes. And then once we have those goals laid out and the ways that we're going to tackle that, then we're going to really plug in all the fundraising activities into your fundraising plan. All right, so now for the good stuff. So when you're thinking of the ways that you are planning to focus on when it comes to filling in your fundraising goal spreadsheet, there's three main ways to predictably grow your fundraising, sustainably and predictably grow your fundraising. So the first is to increase donor retention. Second one is to acquire more donors. And the third is to increase gift size. So all of these three fundraising activities, all of your fundraising activities that you do throughout the whole year should tie back to these three strategies. So you want to make sure that each fundraising activity you plan is helping to accomplish one of these three goals that you're going to be mapping out. And so you'll see this is highlighted here in the focus areas. So there's donor acquisition, donor engagement, donor retention. So these should be basically the three main goals that you're sort of highlighting here. So increasing donor retention, acquiring more donors, and increasing gift size. So number one, let's take a look at donor retention. So now more than ever, donor retention is really, really important. It's not the best of times to acquire new donors, but it's a great time to rely heavily on increasing donor retention, which can really, really help you sustainably grow fundraising throughout the year. And why donor retention is so important is that it's really all about your existing donor relationships. So on average, nonprofits lose about 60% of their donors each year, which is so sad. You're having a lot of people come and donate, 40% or so come and donate once and then never see them again. Or maybe you've had a few donors that donated once or twice, and then you just don't hear from them after the third time. So really a big step for you is to focus on donor retention and increasing your retention rate. So it actually costs nonprofits 200 to 300% more to attract new donors than it does to get a second gift. So backing up just a moment, when I say donor retention is the percent of donors that return to give another gift in a specific period of time. So a lot of organizations calculate donor retention year over year. So you'll look at 2018 and 2019, but you can also do this for quarter over quarter if you've made any asks in that time. So I would even consider doing this quarter over quarter, or maybe looking at year end to your most recent initiative and seeing what that retention rate looks like. But just as a simple way to get your existing donor retention rate, so that you have a baseline of what you basically knowing what you currently have, so then you can make some plans to increase donor retention and you can keep track of that well, is to just gather the total number of donors in 2018 and 2019, segment out those returning donors in 2019, and then basically divide the number of returning donors by the total number of donors the previous year. So if 100 donors from last year returned to give gifts again out of 250 total donors, so that's the total number from the last 2 years, and only 100 of those donors came back again this year, then you only retained 40% of your donors and you lost 60% of them. So donor retention rate and knowing yours is really important. So that is a good next step for you, is to really dive a little bit deeper into that. And then when you're looking at strategies to actually increase donor retention, I have a few here for you. There's actually kind of a lot. So I won't go into detail about all of them. But one of the things that you'll want to do to ensure that you retain donors is get them out a thank you immediately. Donors were 400% more likely to give another gift online when they got a receipt immediately. So whatever system you're using, make sure they get that receipt immediately, because they will, be comforted in knowing that you actually received their gift, and then having a thank you and acknowledgement right away is really helpful in just making them feel like their donation is important to you. So 400% increased retention rate when they immediately got a thank you. A second thing is just creating a welcome email series. So a series of probably between 4 and 6 emails so that new donors can get to know you. And then even for existing donors, it's always good to have a series with them as well so that you can stay in touch and report on impact regularly. There's also some information out there that actually came from Bloomerang, which is that if donors give again within the first 3 months of their first gift, they have at least twice the amount of lifetime value. So if you're getting, like, let's say you're doing a fundraising campaign next month, put it on your schedule to reach out for a second gift within the first 90 days. You're probably going to retain them and get way more out of them in the long term, and have them start that journey with you and help them continue on the journey with you. And okay, so then for donor retention as well, you're going to want to think about segmenting out and nurturing your donors who give higher gift amounts, thinking about anyone who gave more than maybe $250. Those typically higher donors have a 76% retention rate. So focusing your area, your investment when you're investing in those relationships onto those higher donors really pays off in the long run. And consider doing some donor surveys. Basically, really understanding why someone gave is really important to helping you tailor content towards them and really plugging them in and making the right asks. So that's not the only thing that you want out of a donor survey. You also probably want to know how easy it was for them to give, because that can give you some idea for if you should look into maybe easier options for giving. And also investing in building up your recurring giving. So this is actually something I want to spend a few minutes talking about, because it's really, really super effective in helping you build and grow donor retention. So this is, if you do any of the things, I would say any of the things that I just listed, make sure that donation receipt goes out automatically and immediately, and then invest in building up some recurring donors. So recurring donors give 42% more annually than one-time donors. They also have a 90% retention rate as opposed to 46% for one-time donors. So this is huge. So when you're trying to increase donor retention, recurring donations is basically the way to do it. It's also trending. So recurring giving grew 17% last year from the M&R benchmarks report. So that's really insightful as well, because you also know that your audience is also primed for recurring giving as well. So recurring giving is one of my favorite things. It helps you sustainably fundraise, and it ensures that you have, basically predictable income every month. So you kind of know what's coming in, and if a few donors lapse, you can always reach out to them to keep them for the long term as well. So when you're thinking about recurring giving, you want to make sure that you have recurring giving in place on your donation form on your website. And I would even suggest considering making recurring giving the first option. So instead of one-time donations being the default, maybe have recurring giving be the default to help you drive more recurring donors. Also, maybe consider running a recurring giving campaign. I've seen these work really well, which is, maybe something in a 30 to 60-day period, and you push people to become recurring donors during that time. You get a lot of recurring donors in at once, and then, even if you get $5,000 that first month, then now you're just generated $5,000 in recurring revenue that you can expect coming in every month throughout the year. So huge way to help you very quickly boost your recurring giving program. And then, a lot of this is all really about engaging existing donors to give monthly as well. So thinking about anyone who's given at least twice, they're probably primed for monthly giving. So reaching out to them specifically with targeted asks for recurring giving is always a good win. And then you're asking the right people to make a recurring gift. So here's just an example of that recurring giving defaulted on a donation form. and you'll see that there's the different giving levels, and you can customize these here on CauseVox to really be specific levels that help you drive more recurring gifts. So you probably want your first option for a one-time gift to be a little bit higher, and then your monthly recurring giving to start a little bit lower, because, you know, a $30 one-time gift versus a $10 recurring donation seems a lot less for the donor at the time, but then you're also increasing revenue over the course of the year 4 times that way. So, so just a few tips on recurring giving and how you can structure that on your donation form. And then there's, this is an example of Mortgage Professionals Providing Hope. They have this recurring giving campaign going. And so this just, it was a short-term initiative, and now they're just consistently driving revenue throughout the year, all totaling up on this campaign over time. So if you're interested in learning more about that, I'd be happy to share with you some details. I also wanted to address that it is, there are some additional strategies right now that you can do. So, you know, with all of the changes that have happened, I would say, if you haven't done any fundraising or real outreach to year-end donors, I think now is a really great time to check in with them, especially those first-time donors. So I would do some targeted outreach right now to basically just nurture and retain those donors who gave during the year-end for the first time. Also, you know, summertime, there's a little bit extra, usually there's a little bit of extra time on fundraisers' hands. So I would take this extra time to invest in your relationships with all your donors. Think through the ways that you can do that. Maybe you want to do a virtual happy hour with them, for example, and break it into several groups just so you can basically give them an update as well and hear back from them. Also, I would just, for the purposes of predicting your revenue, check in on any existing pledged gifts or just any gifts that you typically expect to see coming in every year end. Make sure that you can still expect them, in kind of the nicest way. Just follow up with them and just make sure that they're still going to give this year, because, you know, maybe they had changes in employment or there's, you know, something going on. So I think it's a good time to just make sure that those existing pledges are still coming in. And then for anyone that actually can't give right now, there's probably a subset of your donors that are having a hard time and don't have the extra cash. I would either have an alternative ask, so either give them the option to do peer-to-peer fundraising for you so they don't actually have to donate, but they can recruit their friends to give, or maybe reposition your ask amount. So if you hear from a donor that's like, hey, I can't make my $500 donation this year, I'm sorry, be like, you know, that's okay, but, you know, $100 really goes a long way, and explaining that, so that they still feel like they're contributing, even if it's smaller. So at least you're keeping that donor, even if they don't give as much. So action items for you: calculate your donor retention rate so that you know how to set your retention goal for the rest of 2020 and beyond. And then consider which donor retention strategies you plan on implementing. So all of this is going to go into that donor retention section of your focus area, whatever activities you want to do, and then whatever specific increase in donor retention you plan on making. All right, so number 2. So we're in the 3 ways to grow fundraising. Number 2 is new donor acquisition. So there's a few new donor acquisition strategies I want to really focus on today. There's a bunch, but I think it's a little bit harder than usual, like I mentioned earlier, to acquire new donors right now. So I have 3 recommendations for you. I would recommend optimizing your donation form and all your donation pages that you're using across all of your asks, making sure that that's really optimized. Number 2 is really exploring peer-to-peer and virtual fundraising further. And then number 3 is activating your partners for fundraising. So any corporations, you know, maybe sister organizations, anyone basically in your networks that, you know, maybe board members, companies, for example, just activating any partners to advocate for you and fundraise for you. So let's dive into donation form optimization. So we took a look at the data, and it looks like 75% of young donors are unfortunately turned off by an out-of-date website. Donors are 38% more likely to give on responsive websites. Conversion rates increased 50% when form fields were lowered from 4 to 3, so less things for them to fill out, basically. And overall, here at CauseVox, we've seen that at least 65% of all fundraising web traffic is mobile and growing each year. So all of these things really speak to what donors want. So they want something that is updated. They want something that is easy to use. They don't have to wait a long time. They're not being redirected anywhere. Very easy to use. They don't want to have to fill out a ton of information to give. And they also want to give on any device that they're currently using at the moment, a lot of which is going to be on mobile. So these 4 trends really speak to what makes donors convert when it comes to a donation page. So it's never been more essential that your donation page is optimized on your website, because now more than ever, you're pushing people to your website to give. So it's very important that you take a look at your website and maybe make a test donation, see how easy it is for you. Maybe ask feedback from a few donors who have given before through your website, and really see what needs exactly to be improved to help improve the conversion rate. Because it doesn't matter what digital marketing you do and how much time you invest in asking for gifts. If it's hard to donate, your donors are unfortunately still going to turn away. So they're going to navigate somewhere else and kind of forget about it. But when you invest a little bit in conversion rate and increasing that, it goes a really long way. So you basically need a donation page that helps you drive more results with a digital marketing sort of focused form. So relying heavily on what actually causes donors to convert. You want to make sure that it's mobile optimized and potentially supports mobile payments. So here at CauseVox, our donation forms are both mobile optimized, and we have Apple and Google Pay options. So, I mean, that's definitely targeted towards a little bit of a younger audience, but when people can give in one click without having to put in a credit card, if they have Apple or Google Pay set up, makes it a lot easier and quicker to convert those donors and increases conversion rates for them. And then really ultimately just a really easy and great experience that your donors will love. So here's an example of one of our donation pages. Stupid Cancer used this for their, it was an event that they had that they drove people through. And you can just kind of see what that donation process looks like here. Easy 2-step process, not a lot of things to fill out. Some of which can be, probably auto-filled by the information already stored in your browser. Okay, so then that's donation form. Very important to make sure that that's optimized before you do anything else. Okay, number 2. So peer-to-peer and virtual fundraising, I'm gonna kind of address these 2 things at once because they sort of build on each other. So peer-to-peer fundraising is really all about having individuals fundraise on your behalf. So typically setting up a campaign, and then individuals sign up and they send it out to their friends and family saying, hey, please donate to my page. So that's the basic structure of peer-to-peer. So we've seen that organizations that use peer-to-peer tend to raise about twice as much as opposed to crowdfunding campaigns. So over the last 11 years here at CauseVox, peer-to-peer has consistently helped organizations raise 200% of what they typically would have if it was just a crowdfunding campaign. And that's not coincidence. It's really because your peer-to-peer fundraisers are basically expanding your reach for you. And it's a very sustainable way to leverage your existing audience to build your audience for your campaign. So with peer-to-peer, it's actually right now has never been a better time to try peer-to-peer fundraising because it's also fundamentally about relationships. Because, right now, focusing on donor retention, making sure that your existing donors stay, and peer-to-peer is a great ask and building on those donor relationships. It's also an alternate ask, so someone that can't give again this year in the same ways that they typically do, great way to sort of plug them in is to have them become a peer-to-peer fundraiser. And also peer-to-peer fundraising that we've seen is a primary driver of new donor acquisition. So at a time where it's a little bit harder to get new donors, peer-to-peer shines as one of these big new donor acquisition options for you. I mean, of course, there's a range, but one organization reported back to me, Asian American Arts Alliance, they had 92% of their donors that gave through their campaign be new donors. So first-time donors were 92% of the donors that from their peer-to-peer campaign. So that is a big thing to keep in mind as a new donor acquisition strategy. It's also built for digital first fundraising, so perfect for right now. And if you've never done peer-to-peer before, a really great way to just get started with it is tap your board members. I know sometimes board members are a little bit, have a little bit of an aversion to fundraising and technology or both, but I would still try it. I think even if you can get a small set of your board members, even 5 people on board to fundraise, it actually really is a great way to get started, because then they can send that out to their friends and family and start leveraging their networks for you and help you build up your individual giving. One of the best things when you are doing peer-to-peer fundraising is to actually have a toolkit, basically providing them some resources to help them promote their personal page. So your board members aren't tasked with coming up with original content to help you promote the campaign. You know, have maybe some pre-written emails, pre-written social media posts, a timeline for them to promote their page within. And that goes a long way to helping them become more effective fundraisers. All right. Oops. Okay. So then let's talk about virtual fundraising. So a virtual fundraiser is an online fundraising event. Instead of a gathering together physically, your supporters gather online via technology like live streaming, video, and social media, plus digital fundraising software to raise funds online. So usually here at CauseVox, we've seen a lot of these pop up in the last few months. It's been really exciting to work with a lot of organizations and helping them translate whatever their fundraising event, their in-person event would be online. And so usually it's a combination of live streaming, social sharing, and then peer-to-peer fundraising. So that's typically what virtual fundraising I've seen looks like so far. There's a lot of advantages of virtual fundraising. So of the campaigns that I've seen get spun up that were really virtual fundraiser events, there's typically lower event costs because, you know, events get very costly. Typically cost about $50 to raise $100 at an in-person event, whether that's your gala or, I mean, even sometimes walks and races can get kind of pricey depending on how you do it. But whatever kind of fundraising event you're running, it's guaranteed to have a lower event cost when you run it digitally. There's because of that lower cost, there's a much higher return on investment. And also you'll probably see that there's a higher return on effort. So instead of arranging all these tables and food and spending time, you know, talking to the location, liaison, you have a lot of extra time to sort of invest further in your fundraising strategies and typically get a higher return on your effort that you put in. So less time, basically, less wasted time. There's a wider range of participants and supporters because, you know, physical events, of course, you have to be located close to them in order to attend. While a lot of the virtual fundraising events I've seen have a much wider range of participants that they're able to expand to because people can participate from anywhere. And overall, there's less administrative tasks. So that also just kind of comes along with a higher return on effort. But, you know, when you're doing receipting from cash and checks at an event, it's a little bit more cumbersome than just that automated receipt that goes out as soon as someone makes a donation online. Not to say that you can also accept cash and checks as well, but you're probably going to have less of data to sort of reconcile at the end of it because it's all going to be in one place on a digital platform. So basically lots of advantages of digital fundraising. All of this culminates to helping you take home more funds with less effort. So here's just a look at what that typically looks like as far as new donor acquisition across fundraising options. So benefits and events, about $50 to raise 100. But here on CauseDocs, we see that it costs about $3 to raise $100 from a new donor. So then we have a case study here for you. So we sat down and chatted with Summit Assistance Dogs. They ran their, they always run this luncheon every year. It's held every May. And this year they very quickly transitioned it to virtual. And they were really excited about what they found with this campaign, because they were able to basically engage more virtual table captains. So what they did is have the people that typically fill a table at their event, they, either pay $10,000 up front or pledge it and collect it from the other people that are attending. So they had those people that usually fill a table set up a personal fundraising page and share that with all the people that they would typically invite and more to attend the event with them. They gave through their page, and it was a really, really effective way to sort of keep that same idea and structure of that in-person event and just bringing that fundraising virtually. Overall, because of having it be virtual, they ended up spending $50,000 less in event costs, and then they took home $35,000 more at the end of the day than their in-person event. So as a result, their return on investment increased from 212% from their in-person event to over 1,600% when they brought it virtually. So they had an 8-time increase in return on investment when they ran their event digitally as opposed to in person. So big opportunities there for you to really assess what can be moved virtually and help you acquire new donors online. I just wanted to show you the example from Summit Assistance Dogs and really how they laid it out. They had even event sponsors. They had that toolkit, that virtual table captain guide that helped their participants really raise more online. They had a match in place, so lots of great options that they built right into their page. And here's that display of their virtual table captains. So you can see they engaged about 42 people in their network to create their own personal fundraising page as a virtual table for their event. And what I love about this is that they can really personalize it a lot. So Mark's virtual table, he has his photo with his assistance dog. He has his own fundraising goal there, which is $10,000, which would be what it would typically cost to fill a table. And then he can really dive a lot further into his own story, which is the thing that I love about his page. He goes really into how his dog changed his life, and that's how he met his life partner. It's beautiful. So, thinking about giving your fundraisers or really the supporters in your network the opportunity to share their story and share that out to friends and family, it's really powerful when it comes to just either doing a peer-to-peer fundraiser or doing a virtual fundraising event. Other types of virtual fundraising events I've seen pop up recently, there's been a lot of virtual walks and 5Ks. Here's an example from the Keys to Success virtual walk. You can see they did really well with it. They only expected to raise about 10,000. They raised over 20. Some of the things I love about their page is that they communicated impact really well. So you can see there's 10 youth receiving a year of their services from this campaign. And they really boiled it down to one of the things that they really communicated well is who was going to be impacted. And so they shared a lot of stories. They shared a lot of quotes on the page from some of the kids in the programs. And you can also see that they really detailed out their virtual walk, what it looks like to participate. They pay $35 to register. They're going to get a virtual walk t-shirt in the mail. They're encouraging people to fundraise on social with a hashtag do the virtual walk. So I just wanted to sort of point out some of those advantages there. And then they have their leaderboard here. So that's, 2 ideas is, virtual walk or virtual gala. There's a lot more when it comes to virtual fundraising ideas. and kind of the sky's the limit. So really your fundraising is only limited by your creativity and adaptability when it comes to doing a virtual fundraising event. So lots of options for fundraising and donor acquisition that way. And so some of these things you're probably going to be incorporating into that fundraising calendar and mapping that into your plans for the rest of the year and early 2021 as well. We're going to get into more details about actually how to fill out this document next time, so don't stress too much about this right now. Number 3, as far as new donor acquisition goes, is to activate your partners. So one of the things that you'll want to do is to think through any partners that you have in place. So whether that's a small business that you have worked with in the past, maybe it's a board member's company or other corporate sponsors that you've had, try to engage them in fundraising. So whether it's just to commit a match, participate in peer-to-peer fundraising, maybe they can crowdfund for you, or at the very least promote any existing fundraising campaigns you're running through their channels. Great way to acquire new donors by leveraging a partner's audience. North Texas Food Bank does this phenomenally. They've probably done 150 partner campaigns at this point, and they have one template that they just clone and then just replace the name of their partner and put up their logo, maybe change the fundraising goal as well. But then they supply this to their partner as an easy way for them to basically just fundraise for them. So great new donor acquisition option when it comes to scheduling in some digital first fundraising. Okay, so that's new donor acquisition. So an action item for you is to go over these strategies and well, first is to really set a goal for how many new donors you want to acquire for the rest of the year and then incorporate that into your goals worksheet. And then next you want to consider which strategies you will be implementing in order to acquire those new donors. So again, that's what that goals worksheet is going to end up looking like, with some very specific targets to increase donor acquisition. All right, so then we're going to go over increasing gift size. So I have a few more strategies here for you, and then we'll get into some questions in a moment. I saw a few questions come in. So strategies for increasing gift size. There's basically 3 strategies to do that. There's probably more, but these are the 3 ones that I've seen work the best, in my opinion. So then there's matching gifts. So getting some matching grants, big matches in place so that donors feel like their gift is going further. Communicating impact really well. This is a little bit softer, but really more about incorporating impact statements into all of your communications, whether it's a donor nurturing email or a fundraising ask. And then targeted asks. So, you know, pinpointing specific donors that you want to give a little bit more and, you know, structuring an ask specifically for them. So first, matching gifts. So donors tend to give about 50% more when a match is in place. So if a donor was going to give $50, they're more likely to give $75 because donors, you know, feel like they're getting a deal and they're making twice the impact, which, no, really they are. So great way to give your whatever digital fundraising initiative you're doing huge boost in gift size when you have a match in place. So when you try to obtain a matching gift to drive donations, it also helps to drive urgency because you can put it on a short timeline. So gifts will be matched for the next week. So also a big way to drive urgency around their gift. So I would, if I were you, you know, start with maybe asking your board if they can commit to a matching gift, potentially follow up with a major donor, see if they're interested in participating in a match. Reposition any pledged gifts. So if you kind of know that someone gives $10,000 every year, ask them if you can just reposition that gift as a match for your fundraising initiative, and you'll probably raise a lot more because of it. And then engage a partner. So like I said, with partner fundraising, you know, maybe you can get a partner to commit to a match for an online fundraising initiative. So here is an example from Skid Row Housing Trust. you can see they got Banner Bank highlighted front and center as their challenge grant. They only ran this, I think it was in like 10 days. So they were able to raise $10,000 in 10 days and really $20,000 in 10 days because they engaged their partner for the match. So really effective when it comes to boosting average gift size. Number two, communicating impact. So whatever it is you're doing, you want to make sure that in every email that goes out, whether it be before or after a gift, or even while they're making their gift, that impact is being communicated well. So when I say this, there's a few things that you can do to really communicate impact to your potential donors. And so that is going to be who is benefiting from your fundraising initiatives. So whether it's for a specific program, highlighting who's typically in that program and, detailing that out pretty well. How many people are going to be benefiting? So how many people are in that program? Number of items provided. So if you provided them the items, you should try to list that out as much as possible. If not, maybe it's more about hours of programming sponsored, like you saw earlier with Arizona Friends of Foster Children Foundation. They had 10 years or 10 how did they phrase it? It was like 10 people that are benefiting from their programs for the whole year. So time sponsored, or if you can't break it down to something more tangible, maybe try communicating a type of thank you that your donor is going to be receiving with their gift. And then also try breaking down how exactly funds are being used and distributed. And one of my recommendations is to actually communicate impact with your donation tiers or your levels of giving on your donation form and on any particular digital fundraising campaigns you're doing. So continuing with the Skid Row Housing Trust campaign that they ran for their matching gift, another great thing that they did was highlight exactly how funds are being used. So they said, your donations can support nearly 2,000 residents in 26 buildings, and they're going to get the following supplies. Very, very specific, helps me really understand how my funds are being used. And 68% of donors agree that knowing how their donation makes an impact is important to their gift. So when people know exactly what they're contributing towards, they're probably going to give a higher gift. And this is also seen with these donation tiers. So when I click donate, I'm brought to this page. I can select a tier or of course give another amount. But by seeing, $1,000, I'm going to supply 100 residents with a food kit. That makes it very clear how my donation is going to be used, and it makes me pick a dollar amount more focused on the impact than it is just an arbitrary dollar amount. So the Irish International Immigrant Center did this with their just generic donation form on their website, and they actually saw a $100 increase in average gift size. So very great way, easy way to increase average gift size. And number three, for increasing gift size is some targeted asks. So 71% of donors feel more engaged when a nonprofit sends personalized content. And so really that is all about doing some segmenting. And so one of the things you can do to increase average gift size is segment out your donors based on their average gift size and sort of putting them in the next category. So maybe they give $50 every year. You want to ask them in a specific email, segment out that group and ask them to make a $75 donation. Very easy. You want it to be tangible and have it not be, they usually give $50. Now I want you to give $500. It should be something that isn't too big of a leap for them, but kind of like a next step. And so for that, you probably want to craft a specific donation page that has those gift amounts. So like you saw with the donation tiers, maybe have like only one or two tiers that they can choose from. And that's probably going to naturally drive them to give a higher amount. And then for anyone that is a little bit higher up on the totem pole, so those $250 donors and up, you might want to consider a more personalized approach, maybe give them a call or something like that. Maybe a personalized email. when it comes to asking for a higher gift. So other option for increasing gift size. So when you're detailing out your fundraising goals in your goal worksheet, you're going to want to set a goal for how much you want to increase the average gift size, and then consider the strategies you'll be doing to increase the average gift size within your 2020 fundraising plan. So I know that was kind of a lot. I know we're a little over time, but just as a quick recap here, fundraising growth strategies include increasing donor retention, acquiring more donors, and increasing gift size. And that is going to be what you use to fill out the focus areas, and you'll dive into mapping out your particular strategies for your organization in your fundraising plan. So then next week, we're going to go over actually filling out that fundraising plan to completion. I'll go over all the calculations and all the things that you'll need to really get a good idea of how much you're going to be raising and how much you're going to exactly be driving revenue up for the next year, as well as exactly what fundraising activities you're going to be mapping out. So all of that's going to be covered next time. In the meantime, I'm going to just let you know, if you are looking for a platform to help you raise more with less effort online, CauseVox is here. You can run donation pages for your website, crowdfunding, peer-to-peer fundraising, virtual fundraising, and more, all in less time with less hassle. So if you're interested, feel free to reach out to me. I can definitely give you more details if you want to set up a time to chat, and I can show you the ways that we can help your organization. And then for Friday, we're going to be going over, so today we went over just reassessing your fundraising plan, what your fundraising needs are, and then the 3 ways you can predictably grow fundraising. And then on Friday, we're going to be going over actually plugging all of those plans in, completing that goals worksheet, finalizing your 2020 fundraising strategies, and then just crafting your actionable fundraising plan. So then by the end of this, you should have your fundraising plan all ready to go. Then we're going to be doing that one-on-one planning session where I'll review your plan and give you some guidance from there. And now I know, again, we're a little over, but I want to take the time to go over any questions that you guys have. So I saw a couple come in. Also, I'll keep an eye on the chat pane as well. Okay, so perfect. So first is, will the template be shared? Actually, let me do that. So let me go ahead and share that template with you right now. And as far as, oh, I'm sorry, I guess I'm losing my voice. Can you share more details on creating a new virtual event? So, I mean, hopefully I can try and get into more of that next time. But I mean, I think a lot of the principles that I went over for virtual fundraising events still apply. It would just be about crafting that like a new event all around those strategies that we went over, especially with peer-to-peer fundraising and incorporating that into your fundraising event. We also did just run a whole class on virtual fundraising events. So I would encourage you to take that if you want more of a step-by-step process, kind of like what we're doing today with the template. We also have a template and the whole class around virtual fundraising events if you're interested. And then Judy asked, our demographic skews to 60 plus. Do you think that digital fundraising is effective for that group? And so, yeah, I really do. I think especially now, like, you know, even like how many people have been doing, you know, Zoom happy hours with their friends and family, or at least like I know my whole family was on Zoom. I think that there's a lot, especially right now, where people are a little bit more open to digital concepts in general, especially digital fundraising, I think, in this case, as a replacement for some of their in-person options. So I think there's a little bit of a learning curve there, but I also think the 60 plus group is still maybe more ready to give online now more than ever. I also would say, still do your mailings, if you know that they prefer to receive mail, consider doing that alongside your digital fundraising campaign. You can still incorporate some of those offline strategies to, and then, run digital fundraising simultaneously. So then you're not missing out on any of those groups. And then, yeah, I'll go ahead and send the recording of today's session. So that I should probably have uploaded later today or early tomorrow. So you'll be getting an email with the template and the recording and the slides, so that you can review this. You can share it with your team if you'd like. And that's going to be a resource for you. And so let me, I keep on getting caught up in fundraising planning guide. I'm just going to pull this up right now so I can share it with you. It is a Google spreadsheet, so it's going to be shared with everyone. So you'll just want to download the spreadsheet, and then you'll be able to, of course, edit it and make it your own. So here we go. Copied and pasted in the chat box. So, okay, great. And then Karine asks, can you share more about start-stop project fundraising versus what you are proposing? So yeah, I think that's a great question. What we really see work well is when, you probably are still gonna have, a virtual fundraising event, or, a couple of times in the year where you do have major pushes for fundraising. But I think it's kind of taking fundraising out of the box of like, we only do this once or twice a year, and instead sort of framing it as, an ongoing process, because you can still drive, donors through your website, of course, year round. And you can still do some targeted asks in between those two big events, for example. So I think it's more about, even with the fundraising plan example that we have, I probably have to go back a little bit for it, but you should probably have things that you're doing all the time to engage and like retain donors, maybe smaller fundraising initiatives throughout the year to help you really fill in the gaps. And, digital fundraising, because it is, of course, driving people online, you're probably going to want to be doing digital marketing to continue building that audience so that you have more people to draw from when it comes to, whenever your next ask goes out. So, building that email newsletter list, for example, is a great way to continually sort of drive new signups so that you have, more people to effectively market to when it comes to digital fundraising. So I think that's what we mean when it's not just a, thinking of digital fundraising as more of an ongoing process and something that you do all the time. And that's, whatever you plan in January affects March, for example. So it's sort of like taking that continual fundraising process into play. I hope that makes sense. And so, yeah, I see, I think that's all the questions that came in. Again, if anyone has any more questions, I'm going to give everyone, you should have my email anyway, but you can reach out to me at candice@causebox.com and just shoot me your questions. If you even want me to, Courtney, you said you have a second draft for your fundraising plan. If you want to send it over ahead of time, I'm happy to take a look and give you some initial feedback. And then, yeah, anything else that comes up, please feel free to reach out, and then I'll be sending out the recording and the slides and everything else, most likely early tomorrow. All right, well, hope you enjoyed today's class. If you have any more questions that come up, again, please feel free to reach out. And if you want to learn more about using CauseVox for digital fundraising, happy to, also set up another time to chat with you about that. Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for joining, and I'll see you all on Friday. All right. Take care. Bye.